Hello, my name is Dustin Popkis. I'll be presenting to you over this video on synthetic forests based off of a TED Talk given by Jennifer Wilcox titled A New Way to Remove CO2 from the Atmosphere. So, carbon dioxide. What is carbon dioxide? Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. So what is a greenhouse gas and what does it do? A greenhouse gas is a molecule that slows the rate at which infrared heat leaves a planet. So the more greenhouse gases you have, the longer the planet is able to hold on to that heat, thus warming it. In this slide, we have a graph that depicts the increase of carbon dioxide concentration. As you can see, in early 1960s, there was about 310, 320 parts per million. 53 years later, in 2013, there's 400 parts per million. So what does that mean exactly? Well, in a million molecules floating around in our atmosphere, consisting of carbon dioxide, oxygen, and nitrogen, there's about 400 molecules that are carbon dioxide. That doesn't seem like a lot relative to the numbers, but considering that it's a greenhouse gas, it's a big deal. So what do we do about this problem, this constant increase in carbon dioxide concentrations? Well, during the Obama administration, we tried implementing regulation. We tried implementing additional taxes on CO2 emissions. We tried other various tactics. But unfortunately, economically, it just didn't make sense. Our gross domestic product shrunk considerably. People were losing their jobs. And there was other various factors involved in this, but this did play a major role. So is there any other way that we could reduce the carbon dioxide concentration? Can we maybe just take it out of the atmosphere? Well, it actually already happens. The Earth does this. It's an amazing, intelligent design. It's called the CO2 cycle or carbon cycle. This is Earth's natural, self-regulating thermostat. This is the reason why Earth has gone in and out of ice ages and in and out of periods of high heat. This is the reason we're not just an ice ball or we're not just Venus. So there's two ways that Earth regulates the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. The first is through plants. Plants take in CO2, combine it with the energy from the sun through photosynthesis, turning it into sugars, and giving a byproduct of oxygen. The other way is through the process, the rain cycle. So when it rains, it actually takes CO2 from the air and through the liquid raining down into the ground and onto the surface of the earth, running into the ocean, where it turns into a solid in the form of carbonate rocks. Through the history of time, other geological forces will recycle those CO2, that carbonate rock, but it stays there for a very, very long time. This is the exact way that it regulates the heat. As Earth gets warmer, it will cause more water to evaporate, causing more storms, causing more rain, reducing the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. As Earth cools, less water evaporates, causing less storms, causing CO2 to build up in the atmosphere, causing Earth to warm up. It's brilliant. So, if Earth can do it, can we do it? Absolutely, we can do it. It's called the synthetic forest. What we have here is a container holding a CO2 extraction liquid, and this container also has fans. These fans will blow air into the liquid. As the air bubbles up to the top, the liquid will extract the CO2 and we have a cleaner atmosphere. So one great thing about this process is by the end of it, we have a very high concentrated liquid of CO2. This product can then be used to create plastics. It could also possibly be used as an energy source itself. Very, very ingenious. One problem is it takes a lot of energy for this process to happen. So how much energy do you think it takes to extract 1 million tons of CO2 from the atmosphere? Unfortunately, it takes a power plant, a lot of energy. Basically, it boils down to about $1,000 a ton, which boils down to about $50 a gallon, which seems like a lot because it is a lot. There is one company out there, however, who is already implementing and creating synthetic forests, and they do it through burning natural gas. Now, that seems a little bit counterintuitive because the byproduct of burning natural gas is CO2. But this company has figured out a way to catch the byproduct CO2 plus the intended CO2 they were looking to catch in the first place. They've reduced this cost from $1,000 a ton to $600 a ton, about half, but even at that price it is still unreasonable. We need regulation in place. We need subsidies in place to grow this idea and make it more fiscally reasonable, cheaper, affordable. We need to implement ways to save our planet. Now, one other benefit of this is the space it takes up. As you can see here, we have a map of the Amazon rainforest, which is very, very large. It's 5.5 million square kilometers. And the Amazon rainforest annually extracts 1.6 billion tons of CO2 a year. Now, the size needed for a synthetic forest to do the same job is this little guy right here. That is the benefit of synthetic forests. Another benefit of synthetic forests is that they don't need to be placed anywhere specific. They don't need to be placed in populated areas. They don't need to be competing with farmland. They could be placed in the desert as long as it's in a place where it can push air through the liquid extracting the CO2, then it's doing its job. We need to give us as a race, we need to give humanity time to figure out a solution to this problem that actually works. That's what synthetic forests do. They give us a buffer. We obviously have tried implementing negative ways and positive ways to reinforce clean energy and to punish, more or less, the dirty energy. And unfortunately, our economy is so heavily dependent on liquid energy. There is a small percentage of the population that can and are willing to pay for clean energy, which is great. We need to continue to push for green energy. But unfortunately, the majority of the population does not have the funds and cannot fiscally afford clean energy. Again, we need to give us time. As long as we slowly implement these clean renewable energy systems and we change our infrastructure and we change industry, eventually it will be commonplace. Green energy, renewable resources will be commonplace. But if we don't do something to give us time to implement those processes, such as synthetic forests, it will spiral out of control before we have the ability to fix it. Thank you.